Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. Yeah, we're getting older. I mean, that's a guarantee. Our population is aging by very large numbers. What's involved in the aging process? You don't think about that until you get up there a little bit in age and, things change a little bit. But there is a certain progression. There's certain categories, certain markers along the way. We're going to look at that today. And either for yourself or somebody that you're connected with, a loved one, she is the woman behind the Center for Ageless Living. And this is a wonderful place in New Mexico that is basically a gateway for healthy beauty, wellness. Honestly, I've never seen anything like it, right down to the bakery. Just amazing what they have there. And she is back with us. Actually, you're in the bistro now, aren't you?
I'm actually in our education training building right now.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Suzette Lindemuth is back with us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day here in New Mexico, finally warming up a little. I'm sorry those of you that are experiencing the cold weather. Mother Nature doesn't seem to be very happy these days.
My gosh, to your point, I just talked to somebody, did a podcast with them, and they're in Louisiana, New Orleans, and I wasn't aware that they got 10 inches of snow, pretty much crippled the entire area. That's the most snow they've gotten in 130 something years. And of course, almost a state of emergency in Florida now because of some snow. Crazy. You guys had snow so far this season there, right?
We have had snow, and we would love to have a little snow here. We're in a drought here, like many of the southwestern states, but we have had snow up in the mountains, and the ski areas are open, so people are enjoying New Mexico. As we always say, it's the land of enchantment. So we're happy that people are coming here and visiting us. So please come and see us.
Love it. So let's talk about the stages of aging. Where do we begin with that?
Well, I do think that, we start aging as soon as we're born. So I think we kind of failed to miss that concept along the way. And as we age, I think there are just mile markers. And I think that 7-year cycle does exist, that every 7 years you feel a little bit of a change in your body. Our skin rejuvenates approximately every 7 years. So there are things within our own body system that are changing. I usually say every 10 years you start to feel things really change. So about 55, you start to recognize you're not quite 45 anymore, and then at 65, you really start to question the journey of aging. And then at 75, I think that's when a lot of people are saying, I need assistance with this, I need help with this, I'm not as strong as I used to be. And so some of the things that I kind of am focusing on these days is sort of the concept of stability and strength and stamina. I talk to my friends, and those are some of the things that they say are the most important. And, we're all in that 65 to 75 age group. And that's where I think you start to say, what is my life going to look like when I'm 70, 80, 90?
The one thing I've noticed and experienced, won't tell you my age, but what you're talking about, mobility and how stretching is so important, and we minimize it, but it's everything. And I go to the gym and I see even younger people in their 20s spending a ton of time stretching. And I feel even as you get older, that's a we talk about the strength and the stamina. That is key. I just, that's been on my radar recently. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I would like to start with stability, because I think being stable with your body, having your feet on the ground, feeling grounded is really a critical component of our health. There's nothing worse than falling. So balance is essential to good aging. And there are simple exercises that you can do to improve your balance. But falling is one of those things that occurs that you're so unprepared for it. It's like a shock to your system when you fall, because you can trip, you can I have been suffering from some vertigo, and all of a sudden, not being able to be balanced and stable made me go, wow, this is such a critical part of what we need to work on to age well. So I think being stable in our environment, is our home life stable? Are we safe? Do we have the financial resources? So stability, I think, is an interesting word to describe a lot of things that you can think about when you're in that aging process. Luckily, there's solutions to a lot of problems, and you have to just be aware of them. The vertigo was a simple little inner ear thing. It went away. And then I realized, wow, that was really a scary thing to not be stable. And then you talked about strength.
Well, you're on a stability. Before we even get off that one, there's a lot that encompasses. And I also, you said grounded, and I took that as, steady feet on the ground, but there can also be stability in spiritualism too, where you're literally grounded in your life. You feel that, you've got certain support and things around you. Stability is a big one. It really is.
And you don't hear the word very often used with aging, but I've been thinking a lot about aging because I'm on my own journey, and stability to me was a really powerful word that you really do have to have that strong, centered ability to be stable to age well.
Suzette, I moved right on to the physical aspect. That was my first strength and all of that. And you stopped me and you went to stability, but now I'm seeing it in a whole different way. There's so many different pieces, financially stable, having gotten to a point in your life where you're good with yourself in that you're resilient. When things pop up, it doesn't rock your world. You kind of move forward and take care of it. All part of everybody's journey in different areas. And of course, the spiritual side of things. So thank you for putting the microscope on that.
You're welcome. But, strength, you talk about inner strength, outer strength. And again, when we feel this urge to say, what do we really need to do to be ready for old age? And old age, you almost hate to say the word old age, but we are getting older, and strength, that physical strength, is critical. Like if you can't get up and down off the floor, or you can't get up and down off the toilet, or you can't walk a household distance, it is extremely hard to age gracefully. It just doesn't mesh. And so at some point, and again, it can be triggered by an injury or an illness, arthritis, back pain, all the things that make you step back and say, what do I need to do right now so that when I'm 70 or 80, I'm going to have the quality of life? Because we are going to live that long. We are going to live to be 70, 80, 90. Our medical health care here in the United States is good. We can solve most things. We can sustain life for a long time, but it's really the quality of life that you have to look at. So when you think about strengthening and exercise and weightlifting, and I watch football. I'm not a sports fan, but this year, for numerous reasons, I've been watching a lot of football and Hallmark Christmas movies. Those are the two things that have, kind of taken me off of the news cycle. And, you see these football players, their physical ability and endurance is just incredible. But you also know that they sustain a lot of injuries. You see them flipping and flowing, and they have to go back into training. They have to get into the gym with specialists, with physical therapists, and really rehab almost constantly from injuries. And so I have decided that I have to put on my helmet and get into the gym and get my personal trainer and work on strengthening so that when I am 70 or 80, I am going to have the physical strength to be able to endure old age.
I think it bears saying that, in my understanding, it's never too late. Somebody might look at themselves, they might be 74 and say, I'm going to the gym. All right, what difference is that going to make? In my journey and watching others, it makes a big difference. If you stick with it, you're intentional, just to build some of that strength, some of that mobility. it can be very impactful, but I think we minimize it as we get older. What do you think?
I agree with that. And I have several friends who, are retired in their 70s, and they literally go to the gym every day. They are very committed to it. They're not looking to run marathons. They're not trying to become a weightlifter in competition. They want to just remain active and strong. And they've also built a community around going to the gym. So it is their way to stay
Mm,
connected to young people,
mm,
to others who are also on that same journey as them. And so the gym has become really their community, and it helps to reduce that isolation. And I think that it's critical that you follow some of those paths in any way you can. I mean, you can take yoga classes, you can go to the gyms, you can hire professional trainers, but that connection to another person who can help you stay motivated to stay healthy, I think, is critical.
it's a really great point because even if you don't actually connect with people at the gym, just being around other people and the energy that I'm a big believer in energy that gets around the
Mhm.
room, just exchanged, and the positivity of people working on themselves. Um, it's powerful. I think it's powerful. And for let's say somebody who is up there in age, and let's say yeah, they may even be alone at this point in their life. At
Mhm.
least they're connecting with others in some type of level by going to the gym. Can be huge. I really think. I really think so.
One thing I would say that's important for elders and individuals to know that, in almost every state across the United States, the managed care, healthcare system, managed care organizations, who are participating in Medicare Advantage programs. And I'm not a Medicare expert, but almost all of them now really support health and wellness classes in local gyms. You can get your silver sneaker card, your healthway card, and you can go for free. I mean, literally, it's one of those advantages that I think people kind of maybe poo-poo a little and they go, oh, I got my little card, but take advantage of it. I mean, the YWCAs across the United States and the YMCAs all take silver sneakers. They're interchangeable in states, but there's many, many organizations. That's just one. And those gyms have multiple resources. I mean, the one in Texas I went to was lovely. It had a swimming pool, it had yoga classes, it had exercise workout classes. I took a stretching class. As you said, stretching is probably one of those things we don't do enough of. So take advantage of those programs. They're really invaluable.
For sure. And just one final thing on the stretching and the mobility. Um, even in myself, even when I was younger, if I would bend down to pick up things or work on something, car, whatever it might be, even when I was younger, my knees would be like, and, just, that hurts. And I started stretching more. I worked with a trainer. This is over the past year. And then lo and behold, recently I went to go pick up something and I anticipated, well, this is going to hurt a little bit. It's like, oh, it feels okay. Wow. That actually made a difference. But I didn't even realize it because it was incremental over time. So definitely makes a difference. The three S's that we're talking about here also includes one more and stamina, right? How do we define that?
Mhm. Well, stamina is the ability to do a task for a duration of time without any excess grief or pain, I would say. So building up stamina or endurance is another word that perhaps we can use to really talk about being able to do tasks for a certain amount of time. But I think when I talk about stamina, I think one of the stories that you hear a lot from elders and my friends and myself even is that, gosh, I just can't do what I used to do when I was
Mm,
45. I just can't do as much. I can't, walk as far. I can't sit at the desk as long. So the stamina starts to decline, and then we start to kind of maybe have excuses for that. Not that that's a negative thing. And again, I'm not thinking that I'm going to be able to do everything that I did when I was 45. But when you start to lose that kind of ability to do a task that you loved before and you run out of energy and you feel a little washed out, then I think you have to step back and say, gosh, I feel like I'm losing some endurance, and it kind of is connected to strength. But I think one of the best things you can do to build up stamina is to walk. I mean, walking is one of those things that you can do anywhere. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. It's probably the most valuable exercise you can do to build up endurance and stamina. You can do it by yourself. You can do it with groups. You can do it while you're listening to books on tape or music. It's a really powerful, simple thing. And I know we kind of talk about walking a lot. I know there are people who really advocate walking, but and we have a lot of apps now that tell us how many steps we do every day. And we have the watches that are saying, keep walking. So there's a lot of ways to stay motivated about walking, but you really should consider putting walking into your daily routine in some capacity. Also, getting outside and in nature is a bonus to the walking program. And inevitably, you can walk farther and farther the more you walk. You can see your stamina and your endurance increase because it's not so hard to walk 3 blocks and then 6 blocks and then a mile and then maybe 2 miles. And so it's certainly an easy way to really measure improvement. But stamina is something that we really need. We really need to be able to have the endurance and the strength to continue to participate in the activities that we love, and to the degree that we can complete a task and feel good about it and not feel exhausted from it.
Thank you for bringing that up, Suzette, because I believe many of us at any age minimize the benefits of walking. And it's been scientifically reported, proven that it's just as, if not better than even jogging. But we think that, well, I'm not really moving a lot. No, you really are making a big difference. It just takes a little bit longer in terms of walking. And tons of people I know have lost so much weight, have gotten better at many different things just by being intentional. And everything's a habit in my belief. We have bad habits, we have good habits. You set a habit every night after dinner, go for a walk. Even on that point, just reminded me that it was reported in the fall, according to research, walking just 15 minutes after eating a meal stabilizes your blood sugar and does so much in terms of digestion of the meal. 15 minutes. That's it. You walk to the mailbox, you already used up one of the 15. So yeah, that's a great point you bring up. Thank you.
And I do think having routines like walking after a meal or getting up in the morning and walking and putting those it goes back to almost being stable. Like if you have a stable life and there's some routines, and I don't mean being, boring and not changing the routine occasionally or walking the different direction than you usually go, but having those stable routines in your life can really benefit you in a health way. Your health is so fragile, and you miss going to the gym for 3 days and you've lost everything you worked for 3 weeks. And so it's easy to lose flexibility and strength very quickly. So we have to have routines. And sometimes that routine, which involves walking, because you can do it anywhere. You can do it while you're traveling. You can do it while you're visiting family out of state. And it doesn't rely on an actual physical place. The other thing I like about walking is that you can do it in a meditative way. You can really concentrate on your posture and your form and your breathing. You could pay attention to your environment and the birds and the trees and the wind blowing. And it becomes almost a meditative, spiritual activity, and also building up stamina and endurance. So I think it's a win-win. And I try to walk every day. Some days I miss it because it was 1 degree yesterday here in Albuquerque, which is unusual. So, you can miss a few days, but it is important to put it into that routine, your routine of life, and try to create a stable, way in which to build each day on more strength and more endurance and more stamina.
Again, thank you for bringing that up. And I really mean that. We minimize the value. And even as you're speaking, I'm thinking, when I don't go to the gym, I feel a little guilty, which I think is a good thing because it keeps you motivated. But I don't think about, I have a nice park. It's like a mile away. I haven't been there in a year. Why? What am I thinking? And even though it's cold out, put on some gloves, a hat, whatever you need to wear, and go for a walk, because you're also taking care of your mind,
Hmm.
as you said. And so many people say, meditation, I can't do meditation. I don't know how to sit and do the meditative. No, you're right. Just walking is meditation, just
Hmm.
clearing your mind. With the center, I love the name Ageless Living. Um, how do you define that? How do you define that in relation to the center?
So we define agelessness as the art of growing old without regard to time. So it's a process, it's a way of living, and that doesn't matter how old you are, that the concept of agelessness really transcends a number of how old you are. So we really try to embrace that. So we have people who come to the center, who come to our health and wellness center, who are 90, 99, they come every day. In the middle of the winter, they're out there swimming. Now, it is a heated pool, so they have that benefit. But, we have people that are extremely committed to their health. We have about 75 members that belong to our health and wellness program. And again, we do take some of the managed care organization club, like Silver Sneaker. We have the arthritis swim class, and that's an incredibly important class, which involves a lot of stretching, and we do it in really warm water, so it really helps with joints and back pain. It's really great for recovering from hip surgery, which of course we know many seniors are going through hip replacement. We have water Zumba. We have classes in our yoga studio, Tai Chi, Qigong. So there's a lot of classes, gentle classes. These are not, we're not trying to, I used to teach killer aerobics. That was when I was in my 20s, I worked in corrections, and I was the recreation therapist because that was my training. And I taught a class called killer aerobics. And my job was to try to just exhaust, everybody so that they were a little bit more mellower. And, we're not trying to do that with our senior population. We're trying to improve mobility, improve flexibility, and again, create a community that really supports, reducing isolation. And that's the other thing that's nice about walking. If you walk in your community, you're probably going to pass at least 3 or 4 people that you see every day walking at the same time you're walking.
Sure.
Because that's what happens in neighborhoods. People are out walking, and, you get to say hi to your neighbor, you maybe meet a new neighbor. So again, I go back to making it simple. Aging isn't supposed to be a hard process, and the ways to support it are not hard, but you do have to have consistency, and you do have to have commitment.
We're just about out of time. One question, Suzette. Is age just a number?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think people think of it as just a number. I think age is an interesting word in that, because for us, we don't define someone's function and ability by their age. But I think people are so connected, particularly in the United States, we always say, how old are you? How old are you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people ask that question all the time. Like, some people are proud of their age. Some people are like, oh, I would never tell anybody my age. So I think it's an interesting concept to talk about, the number that we associate with age and what does that mean. But
and it's so true,
I
because
think that's a personal decision.
yeah, but everybody looks at that number in a different way and has a
Yeah.
vision of what that is depending on how old they are. Um,
Yeah.
But I'm sure, as you get older, you embrace it, if you're doing okay with the 3 S's that we talked about today. What's the best way for somebody to find out more about the center?
Well, you can go to our webpage, nmagelessliving.com. You can email me at Suzette@nmagelessliving.com. Please check us out on the web. If you have any questions or concerns or thoughts about aging, you can send me an email. We'd love to bring them up into the podcast.
Yes.
I will say that next week we're going to be talking about something that might be somewhat controversial for people, and that is something called maid service. Do you really need maid service? And that really is medication assistance in dying. So I think those are some topics that may have an interest to the general population, as we're all thinking about the process of dying.
Sure. And it's very real. And all of us, it's inevitable. And we've got, if it's not on your radar, certainly loved ones, we got to think about that as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here today. Always, I love talking with you. And the 3 S's that we talked about today, again, you reeled me in the first one, and with good reason. I appreciate that. Thanks again.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see you next week.
You got it. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.